Welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. We continue to track the fallout from the release of those Epstein files, and this one making shock waves across the pond in the United Kingdom as the former Prince Andrew was arrested today, held for hours by British authorities on suspicion of misconduct in a public office related to links to Jeffrey Epstein. And these are some images after he was let go, released by authorities there. And it's an extraordinary move in a country where authorities sought to shield the royal family from embarrassment. It's the first time in nearly 4 decades that a senior British royal was placed under arrest. King Charles also talked about this in a statement here. I want to put this up, saying what now follows is the full, fair, proper process by which the issue is investigated in the appropriate manner by the appropriate authorities. All right, let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox here, bringing into the latest, more on all of this here. Of course, Kinsey Schofield, royal family reporter, expert. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And what can you tell us about this arrest? What was his role and how much fallout is coming from this?
Well, for years, the scandal surrounding Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was treated as a royal disgrace. Tonight, it has become a criminal crisis with the Duke now under arrest or released earlier this evening. Investigators are examining whether his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein involved not just damaging associations, but the possible disclosure of sensitive government information linked to his official role abroad as a government envoy. This is no longer just bad judgment. Catastrophic interviews. You could think back to his sit down with the BBC, where we've now seen he blatantly lied thanks to that DOJ dump. There are so many contradictions that are listed in that dump compared to the BBC interview. You know, it's not just even about palace embarrassment anymore. The focus has shifted to whether a senior royal may have breached the law while representing not only the British state, but the monarchy. And under UK law, misconduct in public office carries severe legal consequences. It would never happen, but life is a possibility. Authorities are now trying to decide whether the evidence warrants the full criminal charges.
And can you speak to the contrast? Because these arrest is about these official duties in this, not necessarily implicating into something more scandalous with Jeffrey Epstein. Can you kind of contrast this? What was his official duty there with the royal family? What do they say that he kind of misused in that way?
Well, yeah. So, I think that a lot of people look at the Epstein allegations and they immediately assume that this could be related to Virginia Giuffre, but it's completely unrelated to Virginia Giuffre. Currently, British authorities are, looking at all of the Epstein files. There's millions of files to go through, and 9 separate police forces across the UK are currently assessing evidence as part of a coordinated national review led by senior law enforcement. Among the matters under scrutiny are roughly 90 private jet arrivals into London linked to an aircraft owned by Jeffrey Epstein. A number of those flights occurred even after his 2008 imprisonment in the United States. But this particular arrest is regarding Epstein emailing, this is regarding Andrew emailing Epstein and forwarding him some confidential documents that he only had access to because of his position as a government envoy. So we might be talking a week from now about other arrests relating to sexual misconduct, potentially based on these 9 separate government and law enforcement entities currently investigating him. But today, what we're talking about is Andrew sharing confidential information. And this is actually incredibly damaging because Andrew's reputation prior to this was as a war hero in the Falklands. And here he is emailing Jeffrey Epstein about business opportunities in Afghanistan as these young men are dying representing the British government and an army in Afghanistan. It looks completely insensitive and shameless and dirty and disgusting. So I think that this is the most unbelievable thing I've seen in my lifetime. I think it's one of the worst things to happen to the British royal family since the abdication.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just speaking to the weight, the gravity of this moment. And I also found it interesting, as you mentioned, the royal family separating themselves from Prince Andrew. We knew several months ago that they removed those titles. Today, King Charles posting this statement talking about it, saying what follows now is a full, fair, proper process by which the issue investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities. They go on to say, in this, I have said before, they have our full, wholehearted support and cooperation. And notably, talking about just his name there, didn't refer to him as Prince Andrew, said his kind of common British name. How is the royal family, how is King Charles III continuing to separate themselves from these allegations?
Well, prosecution in the UK is different from ours, and it's really interesting. If you or I go to jail, it's the people versus Kinsey Schofield. In the UK, it's King Charles. It's the monarch. So this would be King Charles prosecuting his younger brother. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's also interesting because in the last 48 hours, the Metropolitan Police have admitted that they're conducting what they're calling initial inquiries into whether protection officers assigned to Prince Andrew at the time deliberately looked the other way during trips to Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island. And in those allegations, some of the protection officers have said, I spoke out against a member of the British royal family. For instance, one example that's given was a protection officer said, I told on my principal, one of the members of the British royal family, for speeding, and I was demoted. Well, right there, I mean, that's corruption within the system. If these protection officers are fearful of telling on a member of the British royal family, fearful for their livelihood. So we are seeing both Prince William and Catherine and the King try to get in front of this and say it's unacceptable. Could they do more? Should they do more? Absolutely, yes. I think the King needs to address the public. I think he needs to do a video address, a live video address, similar to what Queen Elizabeth did after the death of Princess Diana. But they are making it known we had no clue what was going on. He lied to us too. And this all happened under a Queen Elizabeth reign, not a King Charles reign.
You mentioned something interesting, talking about how the legal system there in the United Kingdom works, where it's not the people, it's the monarch, King Charles himself, against them. But in terms of just who made this decision, how high potentially up does it go? Who actually made that decision, and where do the jurisdictions maybe lie?
You know, I couldn't put my finger on it. I can tell you that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has been speaking out a lot about this. But is he trying to divert attention away from the fact that Peter Mandelson, who is also, is also accused, and if you look at the DOJ emails, looks very much guilty of sharing government secrets with Epstein as well. And Peter Mandelson was working within Keir Starmer's government, has worked closely with Keir Starmer for a significant amount of time. So is the prime minister trying to divert attention away from calls for his resignation by demanding Andrew, engage in interviews with the American Congress, et cetera? I don't know who made the ultimate decision, but I can tell you, based on the fact that I work every day with the UK media, every day I'm talking to them, I felt the simmering, I felt the anger. They want to hold the powerful accountable, and I think that something just snapped.
Yeah, and you mentioned just this, the public opinion. That's what I want to get into, because even though he's no longer Prince Andrew, he's still associated with the royal family. How much of a black eye is it for it, and how much may public opinion sway due to this?
I think if the king did do something like a formal address where he said, look, I'm disgusted by this. I would never, these are not the morals that I hold. I do not have similar morals or values to my brother, that it would really benefit public perception at this point. They're going to have to keep pushing William and Catherine out there, unfortunately. It's an awkward time, but William and Catherine are such a great reflection on the British royal family, and it reminds us of what's to come. It reminds us of the good. These two are so pure. They have this young, beautiful family that people are excited about. Catherine's overcome cancer in the last year. The king is still undergoing cancer treatment. Let's not forget that. So there is some sympathy there. But I think that they have to be more aggressive in the way that they reject Andrew going forward. I mean, Parliament should go in. They should remove him from the line of succession. It should be all hands on deck.
Yeah, and does Parliament get involved in this? Can they even in a legal matter like this?
They can. I mean, technically, they told us that Parliament would have to be involved in stripping him of all of his titles. And then, we woke up one day and the king was like, they're all out the door. So Parliament technically does need to be involved. They've got a lot of stuff that they're dealing with currently over in the UK. So I don't know if it would be on their priority list, but it might be something that we see in the next few weeks.
And what comes next for this? Because we talk about that, the titles almost immediately a snap of a finger being removed. Now this arrest and revelations about suspicion of this public office and links to Jeffrey Epstein. What's next? What comes next?
Well, it's my understanding that the way that they arrested him, the way that they did, the king was not given a heads up, which is wild. The palace was not told. They just showed up at Andrew's home like a normal guy, like a normal peasant, if you will, and arrested him. And the reason that they snuck in on him the way that they did, it was because their ultimate objective was to search 2 properties to see if they could get any tangible evidence. They've raided Epstein's emails. Well, what about a hard drive on Andrew's computer, or does he have any paperwork? And this was probably a difficult task because Andrew has spent the last few weeks moving from Royal Lodge swiftly. By the way, we didn't expect him to be kicked out until Easter. So overnight, the king and William had enough, threw him on a private jet and got him out of the Windsor estate where William lives, and they sent him to Sandringham. So he's been in the process of moving. That's going to be chaos for these investigators to go through, but their ultimate objective in surprising him in this way was so that they could not only pursue the home he's currently in at Sandringham, but they wanted to look at Royal Lodge and see if there was anything tangible that could link him to Epstein or to show that he had been providing Epstein with any confidential information that could get him in any additional trouble.
All right, Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much. Great insight here into this major day. The shockwaves felt far and wide in the United Kingdom and around the world. So I appreciate your time, your insight here on Live Now.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thanks so much. All right, great conversation as always, diving into the latest there with this arrest of the former Prince Andrew. And we'll see what comes next. She did give some context to how it is different than the U.S. legal system. A live picture one more time there in London as they're just kind of waking up, going to bed here early. Morning hours there, as this is the first time in nearly 4 centuries that a British royal family was placed under arrest, underscored the deference of the monarchy that has eroded for years. Let's take you out to this conversation I had with Shawn about this exact topic and what more we know. Live now from Fox, I am Andy Mack. Some major news out of the United Kingdom as the former Prince Andrew was arrested on Thursday for hours by British police on suspicion of misconduct in public office related to links to Jeffrey Epstein. A live picture right now there in London. Here's some major bombshell news in terms of this. Formerly Prince Andrew arrested for several hours, and this hasn't happened in 4 centuries to a former member of that royal family. We're joined right now by Fox News senior correspondent Shawn. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us? What's the latest from the UK?
Yeah, hi, Andrew. You're right. I mean, it's pretty astounding. They used to take the royal miscreants and put them in the Tower of London. That won't happen in this case, but potentially former Prince Andrew could go to prison for life because of this. Andrew was arrested this morning. He's the younger brother of King Charles, of course. He was taken into custody at his home after his emails to Jeffrey Epstein allegedly revealed that he had shared official secrets with Epstein, including inside information about government business. That includes spilling details of his official trips, as well as confidential briefings that he had, all while he was serving in the official capacity as Britain's trade envoy, that back in 2010 and 2011. Despite the arrest, Andrew's brother, King Charles, well, he has been keeping up with their public schedule today. He attended a London Fashion Week event talking about sustainability, did not address the Prince Andrew situation there, but in a statement, he did say that he does support the investigation of Andrew, saying, quote, "I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is the full, fair, and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities." As you may know, Andrew has long been accused of sexual misconduct with underage girls who allegedly were provided by Epstein as part of Epstein's sex ring. Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing. This investigation does not center on those allegations, but basically with his communications with the disgraced sex abuser and financier. When you look at some of the emails, you could see that he was, sending to Jeffrey Epstein the personal emails. For example, he copied and sent attachments of like all of his documents and all of his trips when he went to the Far East at one point. He also, it is alleged under all this, went to a meeting with, other financiers and consultants, and then he shared that information with Jeffrey Epstein. You're not supposed to do that. He's acting, the former prince at the time, or the prince who's now former prince, was acting as an official representative of the crown and as the trade representative of the government, and this is all has all to do with that. And theoretically, if he's convicted of this, he could spend, as I said, life in prison. That, you would think is pretty doubtful, but maybe he can get some prison time, Andrew. I mean, clearly his family is trying to be objective about this and letting the law enforcement in Britain handle the chips wherever they fall, and they seem to have fallen, certainly today, on former Prince Andrew. He's been booted out of his royal duties. And to add insult to injury, today is his birthday. He's 66 years old. He was in the police station for many hours. He is now released, and the video of him, the pictures of him leaving, shows him just totally looking shell-shocked at this. Can you imagine how far you have fallen? And we'll see how this case continues, and if it indeed stretches into any of the sexual abuse allegations that he has been accused of but denied for all these years, Andy.
That is a very good point. Obviously, this is the official capacity around suspicions around that, and it was just several months ago that we saw the former Prince Andrew be stripped of those titles, become a commoner in Britain rather than in that royal family, and we heard that statement from King Charles III as well. I do want to ask you, because King Charles III noted that they will be proper authorities, proper process for all of this, appropriate process for all of this. Can you differentiate how it looks in the United States versus the United Kingdom, how similar, how different it might be?
I wish I knew the answer to all that. I've covered many cases here in the United States. I haven't covered anyone in any case in Britain so far. I'm sorry to not be able to give you that answer.
That's understandable. And we talk about, no, go for it if you have something else to say.
Oh, yeah, but I did want to say that we can't lose sight, Andy, certainly of the victims. I mean, this is a major moment for the victims, and there are supposedly at least 50, if not more, women who have been come out and who have been strongly advocating the full release of all the Epstein files. They haven't been fully released. There are allegations of total cover-ups, that this is all being covered up. A lot of it's being covered up to protect people in powerful positions. And Virginia Giuffre, she was the first and probably one of the most prominent. Her story tragic. She committed suicide in 2024. She wrote a book. She was one of the first victims to come out and talk about that. She claimed that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew, that Epstein forced her to have sex with him. She said that she was raped 3 times. He has always denied any wrongdoing and denied that. But her family, on the news of this arrest, says that their broken hearts feel a little better, that there can be justice even if you are a royal. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, that this is something that the Epstein victims have been waiting and hoping for, and they certainly hope for a lot more justice for many, many more men that they say abused them through Jeffrey Epstein through the years.
Yeah, that is a very good point. We'll see if this is the domino that moves some of those dominoes along in terms of what's going on in the UK, maybe royalty around the world. My last question, Eric, before I let you go, because the royal family, they're familiar with drama. We've seen it in the past years, past decades, some of the exploits, especially with the royal family and with the media. Can you speak to the scope of it, what we've seen with this unfold? How are the people of the United Kingdom reacting? Is this level with other scandals we've seen in the past?
I think not really. No, you talk about the abdication of Edward in the 1930s for the American divorcee. This, I think, is going to have much more of an impact because you're dealing with a royal crown that takes tens of millions or more dollars every year, and I think some people in Britain are seeing this. There's, of course, the Republican, not our Republican, but the Republican view in England, which is to abolish the crown and abolish the royal family. And I think there is seen that if they don't, straighten up and really act on this and do what they apparently are now doing in terms of being very objective, it will potentially have a major impact. Because you're also dealing with potentially others involved, or at least potentially named. There are emails and this, like with other members of the royal family, former members. So we'll have to see all the financial machinations. And I think this will strip away some of what the British people and others see as the royal family, because we're beginning to learn that behind the scenes, at least in Andrew's case, he was a businessman dealing with all these deals, and people don't really know about that. And this will start to be exposed and come out. So potentially this could really damage the royal family. Prince William has been very strong on saying there is no tolerance for any of this. So you may see a potential effort in the future for Prince William to come forward to, try to turn the page in a way on the whole sordid situation with the royal family and what they've, been going through. Because after all, it's not just an institution, and the crown itself a business. Actually, they're also actually a family, and we seem to forget that. And they certainly have had lots of issues with Meghan Markle and with Prince William and his brother Harry, and this just adds to all of that.
Yeah, and obviously he's no longer a prince, but still a black eye potentially for the royal family and that whole group there in the United Kingdom.